you're about to see
You okay, Jack?
is profoundly disturbing and shocking.
You get out there, Mr. Midnight, and you knock him dead.
Late Night with the Devil is a new horror film to hit theaters, and it's a new spin on the found footage genre, something I wasn't aware of until I was sitting in the theater and watching this movie, but I was very pleasantly surprised with how they were able to spin the old trope of found footage and make it feel fresh and exciting. Now we'll get to more of that in my review, but the movie is directed by both Colin and Cameron Carnes, and it stars David Dastmalchian as Jack Delroy, a late-night television host in the 1970s who's been going up against Johnny Carson in the ratings for the last several years, and while he does well for himself, he can't seem to get over Johnny Carson in those ratings. But the movie takes place on Halloween night in 1977, where Jack Delroy plans on beating Johnny Carson in those ratings by having on all sorts of spooky guests to try and boost those ratings. Now, if that sounds like an interesting premise to you, I highly recommend you try and check this movie out in theaters, although it was a limited release, and I'm not sure if it'll still be playing now that it's been out for almost 2 weeks. But with that said, it will be on Shudder very soon, and I recommend you check it out there when you get the chance. With all that said, let's get into my positives and some of my negatives for the movie. My first positive for this movie is going to be David Dastmalchian. I thought he brought it as the lead actor of this movie, and I don't know if he's ever been the lead actor for a film, but now I know I just want more of that in my life. He did a great job portraying this Jack Delroy character, this guy that was just hungry for ratings, and he wasn't worried about anything he had to do, even some dark and shady stuff he may have done in his past involving an occult. It was cool to see him bring that to the forefront, but also his character was absolutely lovable throughout this entire movie. He has a sad story that you feel for and that the audience in the movie helps you feel for, and throughout the movie, regardless of what he's saying to his crew or what he's doing, you feel for him. He did a great job portraying this character, and I just want more of him as a lead actor going forward. My next positive for this movie is going to be the look. They really captured the 70s in this film, whether it was the soundstage that they were on filming this late night television series, or there's the costumes for the characters. You even had people in the audience dressed up as Halloween characters because it takes place on Halloween, which also leads into that look that I really loved. There were jack-o'-lanterns around the stage, cobwebs, spider webs. There were people in the audience again dressed up as different monsters, and I really liked that. So if you get something that's framed on my favorite holiday and you're able to capture that essence of Halloween while you're also able to capture that time period of the 70s, it was all working for me. So the look of this movie, beautiful. My next positive for this movie is going to be the found footage aspect. Listen, I know that it's a genre that has been beat to death by many franchises over the years, but this finds a way to make it feel fresh and exciting. I cannot state that enough, that I didn't even realize this was going to be a found footage film until the movie began. And I was like, oh, I like the way they're framing this, because the way they frame this movie is that you're a viewer at your house watching this movie in the 1970s. So anytime you're seeing the late night talk show, it's in color on your TV in the 70s. And because of that, it really worked for me. Now, what they would do is when they would cut to commercial break, it would go to black and white so you could see the behind the scenes footage of what's going on at this talk show. And that worked for me too. There was a clear cut definition of this is found footage from the TV and this is what you're seeing from behind the scenes that the people at home couldn't see. So you just had a little bit more information. The movie, because it was shot like that, never felt like it was missing a beat. The pacing stayed on point, whereas something that can be really lost in a found footage film is the pacing, in my opinion. But this, because they were able to frame it the way they were, like, I'm watching it from my TV, now I'm seeing behind the scenes in black and white. Now I'm watching it from my TV. It really worked out. There's even a couple scenes at the very beginning of the movie and then right in the middle of the movie where they show some occult things that were happening at the time, and they're able to show you that as rough shot TV from the 1970s. So when you're watching it again on your screen, you're watching it from your home, and that's probably how you would have experienced it. So I think the way they framed the found footage genre was done so damn well, and I can't praise it enough for how they were able to make it fresh and exciting. My final positive for this movie is going to be the great tension and horror building in this movie without the need for 100 jump scares. Now, there is at least one jump scare in this movie, and it was effective. And I'm not someone who thinks jump scares are terrible. I actually enjoy them in movies, but I don't like 100 of them. I don't like just that bothered me in the movie Imaginary earlier this year, where it's just jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. Eventually, none of them are effective on you, and you leave the movie like, well, that was just annoying. But this movie does have one very well-placed jump scare that I thought worked really well, but for the most part, it just built tension between the characters on the stage, because on a talk show now, typically you have political opponents. That's usually what talk shows are about in 2024. And so you've got one political opponent over here, you got one political opponent over here, you got the host in the middle, and he sort of lets them fight it out because he's trying to boost his ratings. And this movie does the same thing, except you've got a demon-possessed girl and the woman who takes care of her over here, and you've got a skeptic on this side, and then you've got the host in the middle doing the same thing, where he's letting them sort of fight with each other so that he could boost the ratings for his show. And because of that, the tension building in this movie is done so well, but also the horror aspect, because as this guy gets more skeptical, this person on the other side feels like it has to be ramped up a little bit more, and so does the host. The host is also trying to prove that there's a gateway to the other side because of some things he's seen and done in his life that I won't go into in this review. But again, they're able to build the horror, build the tension so well that it leads to that third act where everything goes off the rails. And that'll lead me to my one negative for this movie. It's more of just like a nitpick, and that's that I don't feel like they explained enough by the end of this movie. The movie is a tight hour-and-a-half runtime, which I appreciate, but when you get to that third act and it all starts going off the rails, and it does, I just won't spoil it here, and everything starts happening, I wish we had had a little bit more time to explore and maybe answer a few more things, because they did a good job sort of tying up Jack Delroy to a point in the things he had done in his past that were all sort of coming to a head in this movie, but I wish they had just been a little more clear about it. I think if it had been a little more clear, I might have liked it that much more. Again, it's just a gripe I have, maybe a little nitpick. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. I thought that it was fantastic. I can't wait for this thing to hit Shudder, because I will be watching it down here. Maybe even have some friends over, say, let's check this movie out together, because it was a great horror movie, and definitely my favorite horror movie of 2024 so far. Not that that's saying much, because there hasn't been a lot of good horror yet, but it won't shock me if Late Night with the Devil ends up in my top 5 horror films for 2024 by the end of the year, because it is really that damn good. But those are just my opinions, because that's my review for Late Night with the Devil. Guys, this was playing in limited release, but did you get a chance to check it out? If you did, let me know in the comment section down below if you watched it, if you liked it, if we agree or disagree on some of the things that I liked or disliked. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts. And finally, guys, if you like this video and you want to watch more, don't forget to hit the like button, because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of the Late Night with the Devil review, and I had a great time watching this movie. I said it at the end of my review, but this is my favorite horror film of 24 so far, and it's going to take a lot to get over that hill. It's going to take a lot for a horror movie to do that. I hope it happens, because I hope we get great horror movies the rest of the year. But this movie, had this dropped in January, I would have been saying 2024 might be the best year for horror. It was that damn good. But January sucked, and February sucked when it came to horror. So hoping that this movie is sort of the gateway to the rest of the year being great horror films, we'll see. In the meantime, if you want to check out any of my other horror movie reviews, well, I've got all those right there. And I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.